Okay, so hello, technology enthusiasts, and welcome to another edition of Scaling Your Business with Technology. The reason we do this is because technology projects, technology adoption is not always straightforward, but it should be more simple. And that's where we're here to help you simplify that complexity. And today we're talking about hiring technical specialists to grow your team, scale your business. And we're doing that with Donnie and Sarah. Welcome to the show, Donnie and Sarah.
Thanks
Hi.
for having
Sorry, Sarah. Thanks for having us, John.
Yeah, all good. So let's dive into it about hiring, because you folks are from hiring agencies and recruitment, and you have years and years of experience in hiring. So let's maybe open it up with a bit of experience around what you wish you knew about hiring agencies and working with them, and then we'll dive into some things around resumes. So maybe starting with you, Donnie.
Yeah, John, again, thank you for having us. I think the one thing I wish that people knew about us is, our product is people, right? We are dealing with a living, breathing mind of its own product. And so with that, just understanding that our product is people, and really as technology grows, we're talking a lot about AI and new exciting technologies coming. It still requires people to kind of man the machine. So I think, people keeping that in mind, that our product is people, and we have to have great people internally to connect with wonderful, excellent talent as well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So clearly people are reaching out to you right now with all these emails coming in.
I need to put it on mute.
That's awesome. That's perfect. And then what about you, Sarah? Yeah, so people is the product as well, because I know a lot of hiring is very emotional, both for the candidate and the recruiter as well, going through that process on all fronts there. So, but Sarah, what's your take on that, on what you wish people knew about agencies?
I would say, to go off of that, I think three of the main things that are big kind of success factors, right, and looking at, hiring and building teams for the long term is people, process, and technology, right? And what we do really combines all three of those. Because we have to be able to go find great people, right, to then enable process that's usually working alongside technology, right, and using all of that together. So I think, all like what Donnie hit on from a people perspective, but also the relationship aspect, right, of spending time building relationships with staffing firms, and recognizing that, building long-term communication with firms and individuals there can pay off long. You might not need anything now, but connection when the time comes, because oftentimes it's unexpected, is something that can be really important.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things where suddenly hiring is urgent, and then you get tapped on the shoulder and you're expected to jump. And hey, we've always been in those fire situations where we need someone quickly. But to your point, as you mentioned there, Sarah, if you have a relationship, it makes the outreach much easier, because they already kind of know the client, what they're looking for, and know what people process they're recruiting for. And then I do want to jump back to the people, process, technology, because whenever we think about technology, a lot of my clients, I'm sure you see this as well, is they jump to the technology solution. We've got to implement this Workday, this Salesforce, this ServiceNow, whatever this ERP system, whatever it is, they need to do it quickly. So I always like to start with, okay, what are the goals? What are your plans for either the technology or your business? Because then that helps us find the good candidates that not only help you now, but will help you in the future. So how would you work with clients in terms of making sure you get that clarity and the goals there? Let's jump to you, Donnie.
I was going to say, Sarah, if you want to tackle this one first. I think a lot of it goes to relationship, to Sarah's point, timeline. Obviously, the sooner or the earlier we get involved in some of the conversation, it just helps us curate better product, have more time in our searches. I think really understanding what the requirements are. One thing that we find right when we start our searches is a customer or client will think that they want one thing, and then after looking at what's typically out there in the market, and maybe having a couple conversations, realizing maybe this isn't the direction that we were looking, right? So I think, really understanding what the need is, the timeline that we're working with. I think also understanding the budget. We see a lot of customers go out and, they might be pulling data specs from 10 years ago, right? Well, we used to hire developers at this when we did our last, project, right? And it's like markets changed, inflation's changed. So I think the earlier that we can have the conversations, the better. And I think really having a good relationship and trust, right? Trusting your partners in the field, because we were in the weeds, right? We're in the marketplace, and typically what we find is what the going rates and skill sets are, right? So I think those things kind of coming in early, understanding the process requirements and budget, I think are really helpful for us.
Yeah, so where it fits in your bigger picture of your hiring. So yes, you're hiring for one specific role, the project manager, program manager, maybe technical specialist, architect or developer. But how does that fit within your team? Because then knowing that around your goals for the clients will also help with the budget conversation as well, because then you're not only hiring for that point solution right now, maybe there are future candidate for other projects you're going to have, maybe a bigger role that you want them to play longer term. Because when you're hiring there, Sarah, assume you're looking for the longer term. It's not just a point solution for a project. It's also, okay, is this going to be a good fit for the company?
Absolutely. And John, on to that, I think right in the example you gave before of if we're looking at, a ServiceNow, Salesforce, Workday implementation, right? Our clients spending a lot of money, right? It's a huge bring in, a tool like that. And, some of the things that we want to make sure we understand is we're not there to just, fill a seat, right? And fill one position, of really being able to understand what is the business problem that's helping solve for the organization. Because a lot more behind the scenes, right, than maybe just hiring one or two people that have experience in that particular ERP to ensure it's successful. But what are all of the other pieces of the company that it's going to affect, right? The actual teams that are going to be working with this on a day-to-day basis that aren't the IT team. And what are the challenges, right, or even needs that they're going to have on a day-to-day basis as the end users. So helping us, again, kind of take a step back in the beginning when a client reaches out with a need to really understand what's driving it from a higher level business standpoint, and diving more into the details.
Yeah. And if I could add to that, working really closely with our delivery teams, top talent these days are still getting 20 to 30 emails and phone calls for projects. We find the most success, to Sarah's point, is understanding the why and the business, because a great top resource, might not just pick up our phone call because we don't understand the business, right? We're just sending them a spec and here's the requirements, where, they're looking to dress up their resume, gain new experience, right? And the more information that we have from a business perspective can make or break whether someone will hear us out for an opportunity or not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a great point, because sometimes people are favoring certain industries or certain businesses. I mean, there's always going to be the best clients to work for. I mean, I assume these are the Googles, the Amazons, the Microsoft of the world, which would get the top candidates. But then I think where you're heading with this, and what I try and do with my clients as well, is let's emphasize how this role can play out in terms of bringing benefit to the company, which I love your phrase there around making it a resume builder. So it's not just to come in and deliver the project, it's a come in and actually build your skills and learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which I love that as well. And that's where I always like to have this roadmap of, okay, we're hiring for this role, and here's where they fit in the organizational chart that we have for the project and the company. And then here's the roadmap. So once this project goes live and we're building out the company, here's how it all ties together, going back to that people, process, technology, the future goal, and as you mentioned, the why. So let's move to the tactics around hiring, because I know when I work with my clients, the first thing they think is, hiring, it's going to take so long and I have to sift through all these resumes. So the why is an important factor, but is there anything that you would like to see that we can help in terms of shortlisting the resumes? What do you want to see either on a resume or put out there in a role description to help you narrow down the candidates to the role, starting with you, Sarah?
So I'd say from a candidate standpoint, right, once we, have all the details we're looking for a role, right, our recruiters are going out to market, trying to match the skills. And resume standpoint, I think a lot of people, let me put everything I've ever done in my entire career on the resume. But really trying to be concise and convey accomplishments that you have been a part of, right, or that you've contributed to your organization. Key, especially in the technology field, we often see resumes that are quite lengthy. It could be pages because there's so many different tools and different technologies that they've spent time working in over the years. But our recommendation is to try and get that down to a maximum of 2 pages.
Okay, right. Yeah.
And by doing that, right, we want to see, again, not an entire page for your most recent position you were at for 2 years, but really hitting on what are the top 10 maybe bullet points and things that you want to call out. Making sure that the experience you're outlining in there is what you actually contributed yourself. Some feedback that we get from clients that we work with after we've submitted resumes or we're working with the client after interviews have been conducted is that some candidates will often say, we did this, right? Or my team did this, or my company did this. And our clients are trying to dive into what did they specifically do and what was their role in that? Because they may have been exposed to some of the work that was happening, but if they weren't really the person helping drive that, it may not be the right individual to hire. So I think just really focused on your individual accomplishments and trying to be concise and call out, key contributions and accomplishments that you've made.
And I think that works both ways. So as a hiring manager, what results or outcomes am I looking for from the candidate? So this many tens of millions of dollars or millions of dollars in the project budget, for example, or this size of team have they managed, or this project of technology they've implemented, or the customer value you've created from it. So knowing that, then you can match that with ideally candidates highlighting that on their resume. And what I heard back was what did you do specifically? What was your role on that team? What are the results, the outputs, the benefits you created for the company and your experience? Yeah, I love it. Donnie, anything to add to that in terms of how do you help shortlist resumes?
I think Sarah touched on a lot of them. I think, one thing, to really keep in mind is just some of the basic spelling and grammatical errors.
Right.
Have really good candidates that are really smart folks who will just, miss something, right, and immediately be eliminated because of the level of and attention to detail. So I think just some of the basic things, one thing, even for myself, I probably review 30 to 40 resumes at minimum a day. The most relevant experience really being to the top of your resume just helps it not be so overwhelming. To your point, if we're looking for a project manager and our client says we need someone that has, experiencing managing a $10 million portfolio. If I see that bullet towards the top of their resume, I'm a lot more relieved and excited to continue reading. The longer I have to go into a resume to look for that relevant experience, the more kind of exhausting and cumbersome the process is. So, really looking at the jobs that you're probably applying to and making sure that the relevant experience is really current. And at the top, I think just makes the process a lot easier for whoever's reviewing the resume. So really highlighting that experience from the top, I think is very helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And then once you have that short list of the 5-10 resumes, which you think are good, you send that over to the hiring manager. Then what are you looking for in that feedback, again, to help the hiring manager make sure they talk your language? What are you looking for back to get to that shortlist ready for interview?
I typically don't want to send any candidate that I don't think is not going to get the job. We take a lot of time and pride in making sure that we're back, packaging up people that are qualified for the position that can at least interview. But from a feedback perspective, it's so important and crucial for our teams to know where we're missing the mark. One little, system or software, right, or one little piece of feedback can make the difference as far as us being completely accurate or completely off. So any and all feedback that you have when you're reviewing a resume is so helpful and crucial as far as us being a lot more accurate and getting you what you need.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So send the resumes over, you're looking for that feedback quickly to then get to interview, making sure, again, you interview the best candidates for the role rather than just the candidates who look good on paper. For sure. And in terms of the timeline as well, let's just go back to, so we've shortlisted the resumes, we're now going to the interview stage. So then what would you recommend in terms of interviews? Because everyone's busy and I've seen interviews, some last 15 minutes, some last hours. Is there a sweet spot that you've seen works really well for interviews? Is it multi-stage interviews or one interview? What have you seen work well, Sarah?
I would say, in terms of length of interview, I would say 30 minutes to an hour is kind of the sweet spot, right? We've seen sometimes a 30-minute interview, if there's multiple people involved in the interview, isn't long enough, right? Everyone does introductions, you start talking about the project at hand, dive into the candidate's experience, all of a sudden, right? And everyone has to be in the next meeting. So I think taking into consideration, how many people are in the interview. If it's one-on-one, it may suffice. Right? If you have 2 or 3 people, I would recommend an hour and bring the key players of who is going to be involved in the hiring decision into that interview. The more that we can consolidate an interview process for a candidate, the better success a client will have at landing that individual should they be interested in hiring. I think everyone knows, right? We've been working in an extremely competitive landscape over the last couple of years from a technology standpoint. And candidates are, coming with multiple offers. So we may present someone to a client on a Monday, they don't have any offers in hand, and by Wednesday they have 2. And right, we need our client to have an opportunity to make a decision on that and decide if they'd like to move forward. So timing is critical, and understanding, availability of when the team can interview, right? If you don't have availability for 2 weeks to screen, then we'll hold off, right?
Yes.
Make sure that we're sending people, as it gets closer to the time that works for you and your team. But, the more we can consolidate and get the right people in the room at the same time, to have 1, max 2 interviews is going to put you in the best position to get the talent you want.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, it's when we're busy, maybe we've got 5 people to get through. If it's just one person doing the interviewing, maybe there's a second person on it, but it's one person directing the questions. Yeah, half an hour can work. I'm a big fan of helping my clients do it back-to-back interviews. I know it's, sometimes block 2 hours to get through 4 candidates quickly and then do a second interview if needed as well. And then I hear you as well in terms of the hiring process, because once we do that first level interview, we select a candidate. It's then that open communication, because typically in organizations, to move to that next stage of approval, or suddenly someone else needs to get involved in the review or the interview, suddenly a VP needs to be sign off, that can take weeks, and it gets really frustrating for both the candidate and you as an agency, because you don't know what's going on. So what I'm hearing is, and what I again advise, is just keep everyone involved. Just say, hey, I know it's frustrating, we're still waiting on this approval. We may end up, sometimes we lose the candidate because of it, but keep them warm because we really want them if we can. Yeah. Donnie, anything to add to that in terms of your experience around interviews and the duration it takes?
Yeah, I for me, I think also from a strategy perspective, I see where people or clients will want to do 3 rounds of interviews and the last round be a technical interview. And there's a frustration with the candidate where I've already invested time and the technical piece bumps me out.
Yes.
Right. I think, sometimes folks will want to do the culture interview fit first. So a lot of times I advise my clients as far as, let's look at the process and really the why and all the players that are involved. And then let's come up with an interview strategy that's around that. If it's a very technical role, let's get that out so we're not wasting you or the candidate's time and courting people through a process when they might technically not be a fit. Let's knock that out at the beginning if there's a technical screening that's required previously. So adding that in and thinking about the long term of the process, because interview fatigue for candidates and hiring managers is very real.
Yes.
So how can we kind of cut that down and keep everybody engaged and excited in the process?
Yeah. So I guess, you heard it here, folks, is do that technical interview first, because if they're going to be excluded because of certain technical skills, like get that out of the way right up front, because then culture fit can also follow later. Yeah, that's a great point to add. And just talking on technical skills, actually, I know the hiring process can take longer for some skills from others. So I'd be curious in terms of what are the big skills or the most in-demand skills that people are looking for right now? Because then we can start to give people the heads up that this may take longer. So maybe Sarah, if you could, and then we'll jump to you, Donnie. But starting with you, Sarah, what are the big in-demand skills right now?
Depends what industry we're talking about, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we support clients in a lot of different industries. I guess to say on that, I mean, any of the big ERP, right, are something that clients are looking for. We've seen a lot of investment in that over the last couple of years, right, as companies are going through digital transformation, bringing more of their technology up to speed. So, right, and some of the things you mentioned earlier, ServiceNow, Salesforce, Workday, a lot of other ancillary systems that touch those. But from a development standpoint, we have a lot of that space too, and that's where I think what we were just hitting on from trying to condense process and getting those technical interviews out of the way is key, especially for those roles. And making sure that we can keep the process moving along for those individuals, because it is so competitive, right? And such a skill set that, if you're a Java developer, there's jobs everywhere for you, right? Like, you get to make the decision where you work. So it is on clients too to make their opportunity attractive, and going back to about like the why and what's the business problem and the exciting things that they're going to get to have exposure to while working on it. The newer technology that candidates get to work with is attractive, right?
Yes.
Back to like what we hit on before of building a resume. They want to be able to, work on a project for a year with cutting-edge technology so that they can then take that to their next role and make sure that they're not falling behind in the ever-evolving technology world, right, that we're living in, where you can't get stagnant in skill set.
Yeah, I love that point actually as well. Donnie, I'd be interested to get your views, but just to build on that a little bit first is the technical skill, like you say in Java or SAP or any of Workday, service now, the big technical projects going ahead is always going to be a resume builder. But I always whenever I meet clients, I often find that they are, why wouldn't they come and work for us? I'm offering a job. There should be people lining up to take this job. And it's like, well, they are, but they're also lining up for all the other jobs out there. So I really encourage, and a lot of the work I do with my clients is building out that holistic picture to say, you need to attract clients as candidates. It's not a case of just putting it out there and expecting a swamp of resumes, because you may get that, but those people are typically looking for work anyway, so you're not going to get the best. So if you start to paint a picture of here's why it's good to work here, here's this career management path, here's this development that you can get, and maybe you're not going to get the sexiest technology straight away, but maybe there's some exposure to these technologies later on down the road, or maybe you can get involved in an innovation program that we're running at the same time as this project. There's things you can add on to encourage candidates to attract candidates to the role as well. Yeah, I love that. So yeah, Donnie, what's your view on the in-demand skills and the expectations around that?
I would say we see a lot of data. Data seems to still drive a lot of our customers and analytics. Still a lot of security requests, as well as change management, OCM. We're seeing a lot of change management work. Companies are investing millions of dollars in software implementations, but what happens after it's implemented with your staff, right? How are you adopting that? We're seeing a lot of that. And AI, we're talking a lot about AI, and companies are trying to figure out what that looks like. And from a resourcing perspective, who's getting that experience now, right? Because in the next 2 years, those folks are going to probably be in very hot demand. I would say what I see, but across the board, technology folks are still in high demand across the board.
I was going to ask actually, because obviously with ChatGPT that brought AI to the main stage and everyone knows it now, as you mentioned, people are hiring for AI. Are you finding that a challenge? Because the companies are saying, we want to do AI, we want to do automation, let's go. Where are these people? How are you finding that a bit? You have to marry you have to bring down to their expectations to say, okay, what exactly do you want to do? Is that how you work with clients?
Correct. Yeah, and everything's still very initial. right? But clients are asking us what we're seeing and how other folks are starting to implement that and how do they go
Mm,
about doing that. So we'll TBD, right? Maybe our next session we can kind of talk through what we're seeing, but we're still very much in the early phases of figuring that out right now. Correct.
yes. Yeah, exactly. And what about you, Sarah? Are you seeing, I just need an AI guy person to my project? Is that, or is it more
We're
specific than that?
from, a development standpoint, right? AI, machine learning engineers, but again, with that of, there's a lot of new tools that are coming. GPT, I think being the most
Mm,
common, right, and widely known one that everyone's talking about right now, and trying to figure out what does that mean for your business. But from clients that we're talking to, and even internally, I think some people are of what the AI tools can do and how it might replace people. End of the day,
mm,
right? There still needs to be someone who can put kind of the analytical um, hat on, to look at the data. Because I think the thing that we run into, with AI and automation is there has to be good data process to be automated for that to be successful, right?
mm,
Go back the onion a little bit to make sure that, it makes sense for them to automate something right now. It might take another year or two until it's the right time for them. I think it's kind of the hot technology right now, but may not be the thing that makes the most sense for everyone today, depending
mm.
on where they're at in their business.
Exactly. And goes back to that problem solving, critical thinking. So yes, you're hiring for maybe automation expert, AI expert, or whatever that technical skill is. But then, like you say, having some as a hiring manager, hiring firm is having some context for working with agencies like yourself to say, okay, we need this role, we need this developer, but our project team looks like this. And I know sometimes my clients get frustrated with having to say, we just need this developer, just go get this person. It's like, well, with the picture, like you say, when you peel back the onion, when you understand the bigger picture, it's a case of, okay, we're not just here trying to throw resumes at you. We want to make sure this is a good complement for your existing team, because there might be gaps and there might be a future need that we can help with, which will ultimately speed up the process later on.
Yeah. And one thing to add to John, and I think this was a big driver from COVID, is we've seen a lot of requests for almost like a business relationship folks that can communicate between the business and IT. I don't
Right.
know if that's because people are remote, but just some of those folks that kind of sit in the middle that can translate to the business um, and to IT as far as what folks are looking for, right?
Mm.
We saw a lot of orders where, we saw clients implement a lot of technology through COVID that IT didn't know about. So how do we get these systems to kind of integrate? So
Oh, we just lost Donnie. Did we lose Donnie? Oh, no, he's back.
He's back.
Oh, you're on mute there, Donnie. Oh, are you back, Donnie? Oh no, he's gone again. Anyway, he was on a roll. I was enjoying that. But yeah, so just while waiting for him to reconnect there, Sarah. So yeah, so it's that really understanding that skill set to bring into the team. And I think it goes way back all the way to your point at the beginning, as in you're making the role attractive, not just from the current role, but also future development opportunities in the company as well. So they actually want to work for the company, not just so they make the choice over other clients that they could go and work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking as well in terms of um, I want to recap on the what you wish you knew, wish agencies knew. So if we go back right to the beginning, so making sure we have a clear role description, the results, the outputs that you're looking for from the role, and then being spending time with you people like yourselves in agencies to really round out what you need for the role, because that'll help you shortlist the resumes to then present forward for a potential interview.
Yeah, the time spent on the front end helps throughout the entire process, right?
Hmm.
30, 45 minutes to really dive deep and make sure we have a clear understanding of everything you're looking for is going to put everybody in the best position for success, right?
Yeah.
Working off of just a job description that got emailed to us, we're probably going to have some follow-up conversations, right? And may not be hitting as close to the mark from the beginning. So that's one piece of advice I would say, right, is spend the initial upfront time, because that will pay off for you in the long run, right, to ensure success for you and your team as you are hiring.
Yes, exactly. I think the old way of throw out a job description and you'll get a key team of candidates lining up is no longer there because people have choices. And to be honest, if you put out a job advert and you get people lining up, they're probably not going to be the best choice candidates anyway because they're looking for work. So yeah, Donnie, welcome back. You're on a roll there, and we lost you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all good. So yeah, do you want to pick it up from where you were, or should we just go back to we were just talking around the process again?
What was I saying? What question were we on?
We were going through the AI, and then we were talking about narrowing it down to specific skills and making sure you brought in the person and with that holistic view of the project and the company to attract them into the company, not just about that one technical skill.
Yeah, no, I think I was talking about we had seen a large uptick as far as a lot of business relationship manager roles.
Yes.
Yep, that were kind of these in-betweens between shadow IT groups, right, and making sure that the business and IT are really entwined. Just saw a lot of uptick of orders with that in particular as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially with now everyone's remote and on camera, it's knowing they have that relationship skills. They can build that quickly through the video and the online communication tools, not because it's not about just in person anymore. And so it's having that as well is also setting expectations with the you folks when you're hiring or finding candidates, but also with the candidates say it's not just about this development role. We're going to need you to present, so we're going to need you to communicate with senior management, maybe that critical thinking, analytical skills. So it's not just about the technical skill anymore, and making sure they have that rounded experience that you can bring to any role. So then just to as we start to wrap this up and bring it all together. So if we just rewind to the beginning, so making sure we're clear on the role, the results, to make sure we can ultimately having a good conversation with yourselves as an agency to help you frame out that role. And just as you came back there, Donnie, we were talking to Sarah. Sarah was just saying how that upfront work will pay dividends later on to make sure we get this screen the right candidates. And then once we have that, is set up the interviews. And they could be half an hour, but it's if that's with one person interviewing, time block 2 or 3 interviews in a row. I find that really good because then you can quickly compare candidates. Although it might feel like more hard work, it's a very efficient way of doing it because you're comparing candidates very easily. So then after the interview, then what? What do you say? Because I have some things there I wanted to mention, but again, so the interview's finished. What do you want back? What do you expect next from either the client or the candidate? Starting with you, Sarah.
So from a candidate standpoint, I mean, part of our process, right, is making sure that we're connecting with candidates immediately after their interview to see how they thought things went. Because before we go back to our client and ask for their feedback, we want to understand how the candidate thought it went. Were they able to answer the questions effectively? Were there any things, that tripped them up throughout the interview? Or after hearing more about the opportunity in the project, do they feel that it's a good fit? Or sometimes we have candidates, we'll have a conversation and realize, what, sounds great, but I may not be the best person for this, right? The more I heard about it. But, we want to know when things go well so that by the time we go back to the client, we can take that feedback and say, hey, X candidate really was impressed with the team they interviewed with today. They're really excited about the work that you're doing. Here's how they feel they can contribute, and get their feedback, right? Hopefully that feedback is similar. And if they'd like to move forward at that point, right, then we start having discussions around onboarding, start dates, all of that to get the ball rolling. But I think going back to timeline on that, it's key at that point too, right? When they're interviewing, they're typically not the only client that they're interviewing with. And so if they are interested in someone, being able to make a decision quickly and say, let's hire, let's move forward in onboarding, and let's get this person off the market for one of our competitors, right? Or, another company does. If sometimes they're like, well, I want to talk to another couple of people, Sometimes we'll have clients where that can come back to kind of bite you, right? Because another 3 or 4 days, the candidate that you liked at first may be off the market then.
Yeah, and I know that's frustrating for hiring managers as well, because when we're working with clients, they go, "Yes, we love that candidate, we're going to get them," and then they have to request authorization for a PO or get VP approval, and sometimes that takes weeks, and it's very, very frustrating. So I think even that's sometimes unavoidable, but I think keeping you folks involved, updated, aware is the best thing you can do, right?
Yeah, open communication is key, right? Throughout
Yeah,
the entire process. Even if it's no update that you have, I'd rather hear that from you, right, than hear nothing, because
yeah.
that allows us to keep our candidates engaged and
Mm.
have anyone wondering where we're going, even if it's just, hey, I'm still waiting. That's helpful to make sure that we can, again, keep all of the parties involved, up to date, and keeping them interested throughout the process until hopefully, right, we can get a final approval to move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And then what about you, Donnie? In terms of you've done the interview, then what do you want to see next in terms of from the candidate or the hiring manager?
I think Sarah summed it up pretty great. I don't have anything else to really add to that other than, like she said, we talked to the candidate, and then really I always like to get time to walk through, the profiles with my hiring managers. We're in a relationship driven business.
Mm,
For me particularly, there's things that I learn about my clients, how they hire, what they typically like. So on the front end, right, if we can get that time and kind of talk through, this candidate hit it out of the water. Why? Right?
yes.
This person on paper, you were excited about the resume. How did they, what about it did you not like? I think getting that understanding can help us curate a better product for you as we continue to work and partner.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And the constructive feedback as well, as in it's not helpful to say I just didn't like them. It's like, okay, well, what didn't you like about them, or what specifically didn't quite hit the mark? I've had candidates where I've interviewed, and she'd just had a concussion. She'd literally the day before fallen badly and knocked her head, and was in the hospital and overnight, but still wanted to go ahead with the interview, to the point where we had to stop the interview because she was unfortunately slurring words, pausing too long, and she was clearly a strong candidate, great resume, great skills, and we just said, okay, let's just stop, because you look great, you've got great experience, but you're just not coming across well, because she was clearly suffering from concussion still. So we ended up putting that off for a week, and we ended up hiring her. But again, I also want to put it out there as well to make sure candidates are aware that if you're not on top form, just have a conversation, because sometimes life happens, including concussion.
It
Yeah.
does.
And John, to your point as well, we aren't a fly by night shop. I've had candidates interview for jobs and get good constructive criticism. Recently, I had a candidate that was just a nervous Nelly, nerves,
Mm.
and I got really great feedback from my hiring manager, to the point where technically I think this person can do the job. My concern is when I put this individual in front of the business, are they going to be able to? Wow. We took that feedback back to the candidate. My recruiter and I did a couple mock interview sessions. Another position at the same company popped up with a different group. The person went in, aced the interview, and the hiring manager is like one of the best people I've interviewed in a couple
Awesome.
years.
That's
Right.
a
So
great.
again, paying it forward because we can help coach people through um,
Mm.
some things that might come up in an interview as well.
Right. So again, that feedback from the hiring manager to you to help get them better candidates in front of them, so it helps going forward.
Yeah. And John, one thing to add there from a feedback perspective is, say for example, we have 3 candidates that interviewed for a role with a hiring manager. Oftentimes,
Mm.
a client will come back to us and say, I want to move forward with this person, right? And we just say, okay, great. And we get everyone's excited, right, to get that going. But it is really important to make sure that we're closing the loop with the other 2 candidates who they didn't move forward with and get that feedback. Because
Mm.
Donnie's point there may be another opportunity that somebody else just edged them out a little bit in terms of their background, their experience, what they brought to the table in terms of soft skills, personality that was a better fit. But being able to provide the feedback back to the candidate every time is really important in building relationships with both sides. Again, it may have been all positive feedback, but if somebody, again, just, snuck a little bit ahead of them, we want
Mm.
to give that to the candidate and make sure that, they understand, are there things they can work on, or, it may just have been, they did well, but someone else, had a little bit more relevant experience that they ultimately decided to move forward with.
And it's difficult because you're making big investment decisions in investing in a person from a half an hour interview. Then they get onto the project, and sometimes it's just not quite a right fit as well. So sometimes it just does not work out. It's unfortunately it's just life. Things change. Maybe something didn't come out that you expected to. And to your point, I always keep every resume I get. So if I pick the top candidate, then I've also got, oh hey, this person this time didn't get it, but I'm actually then in 6 months' time, I can come back to you as an agency and say, oh yeah, hey, this person didn't do well on, wasn't selected for this interview role, but I'd love to interview them for this new role. So it's back to that ongoing relationship as well.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. So this was awesome. It's really helpful in terms of understanding the process from a recruitment agency point of view, how you like to work with clients, and also then which will help my clients in terms of hiring managers work better with you. And I think we've also got some great tips and advice for candidates in terms of keeping your resumes to 2 pages, not the big 12-page resume, and making sure the bullet points are specific around results and upfront so you can quickly screen, and also getting that feedback on both sides to make sure we get better candidates to present, but also get better candidates to hire at the same time. So just as we wrap up, any other things you wanted to add, Sarah, before we finish up?
No, John, I think we've covered a lot today. Again, we really appreciate you having us on today, and hope that this is helpful as, hiring managers are looking to build out their teams, and for candidates that may be in the market for new opportunities. And just remembering, right, that relationship is key. We're in the people business, and having connections is always a great thing, whether you need it now or, 10 years down the line.
Yes, exactly. I did say. And Donnie, anything else from your side?
I would just add, on both sides, client and the candidate side, the prep. It's important for candidates to prep for every interview. Going into it, you want to be prepared, do your research on the company, look up who you're meeting with on LinkedIn. If you have any friends or connections working at the company, reach out. And to the hiring managers as well, I think going back to your question of 30 minutes or 2-hour interview, doing just some prep work, making sure you're looking through the resume, you have some thought questions based on the resume that you can go to kind of get a good feel for who you're looking for. I typically just breeds out a better result for everybody. So just prepare on both ends. And John, it's been great. Thank you so much for having us this afternoon.
Yeah, for sure. It's been good. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all here as a group of technology enthusiasts ourselves. We want to make lives better for everyone. So it's just remember, folks, that we're here cheering you on as well. So as we continue to push ahead with our technology projects, it's we're here to support. So feel free to reach out. And Donnie, Sarah, if anyone wants to find you, where can they reach out to find out more about you?
My LinkedIn, and I can also just drop our contact information too, either in the chat or follow up as well.
Yes.
Donnie Booker here at Kforce, and I could drop that information in for you as well.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thanks for making time, both the people watching, and thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate you making time as well. And hopefully everyone's got some value from that. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay. Bye for now.